If you think ultra-realistic graphics and ray tracing are what define a great game, you'd better sit down and grab a glass of water, because today we're going to prove that the simplicity of pixel art can deliver experiences just as striking, or even more so, than many AAA blockbusters. Today, I bring you 10 games that not only show that the retro aesthetic is far from being a thing of the past, but also manage to surpass major productions in terms of gameplay, atmosphere, and creativity. So, get ready to discover titles that prove that sometimes less is more and much more fun. Come with me, I'm Matthew, and the video is about to start. Stardew Valley is one of those games that, even with pixel art graphics, delivers an experience so rich and engaging that it makes many AAA titles look empty by comparison. Every detail, from the way the sun sets over the fields to the expressions of the villagers, conveys a level of care and attention that only a game made with passion can offer. It's impressive how, with a simple aesthetic, the game manages to create a world so alive and welcoming, where you feel part of something bigger, even when playing alone. What strikes me most is how Stardew Valley understands the player. It doesn't force anything, it doesn't push you forward with endless cutscenes or mandatory missions. You choose the pace, what to grow, who to visit, and how to decorate your home. This freedom ensures that every journey is unique, and that is exactly what many big games lack. The feeling that the world exists for you and not the other way around. Here, every day can be just about tending to plants, chatting with friends, or simply admiring the starry sky. Furthermore, the game's reward comes from small gestures: harvesting your first crop, gaining a neighbor's trust, seeing your farm flourish. These aren't grand achievements, but moments that make you smile and feel like your time was well spent. It's a game that reminds you of what's good in life: simplicity, connection, and patience. And that is something many AAA games, no matter how much technology they have, simply cannot replicate. Stardew Valley is a reminder that in the end, what matters is the heart behind the game. A single developer managed to create an entire world that won over millions, while big studios sometimes get lost in graphics and empty mechanics. It's a game that makes you feel at home, inviting you to slow down and appreciate every detail. And that's why, even years after its release, it remains a benchmark for any fan of pixel art and simulation. Terraria is one of the few games that truly gives me that living world feeling in 2D. The visuals are simple and blocky, but with an identity so strong that every creature, every boss, and every biome looks like it stepped out of a childhood dream full of shadows and light. The game is 2D, but the world has real depth. Caves that feel like endless tunnels, an infernal underworld, skies with floating towers, and parallel dimensions that look like nightmares. It's rare to see a pixel art game fill so much space with such variety and personality. Terraria's mechanics are a beast of scale: mining, building, crafting, combat, traps, events, hidden bosses, distinct classes, pets, mounts, and an item list that seems infinite. The progression is so well thought out that you can start as a nobody, become a hero, then a god, and yet there's always something new hidden away. What impresses me most is that the game isn't just hard, it's fair. Every boss teaches you something, and every biome brings a new system or threat. It's one of those games that, instead of showing you what's important, lets you discover it yourself, providing a sense of achievement that no AAA can imitate without feeling forced. Terraria's lore is almost religious in its symbolism. The player starts as a weak castaway, progressively scaling a toxic, violent, and surreal world until they face gods and cosmic horrors. The way the game balances goofy humor with Lovecraftian horror, giant flying eyes, brains, nightmare creatures is genius. And the endgame, especially involving Duke, Fishron, and Plantera, features some of the most epic and exciting moments in an action RPG. Terraria is a prime example that a game doesn't need a AAA budget to be better than them. The pixel art, the world design, the depth of the systems, and especially the freedom to create anything you can imagine: houses, cities, castles, dungeons. Even in-game pixel art make it a game that humbles many big titles in content, longevity, and creative courage. It's a game that has literally sold tens of millions of copies and continues to be updated years later with a massive community of mods and crazy builds. If you want a game that hooks you for months, making you feel like a hero, an architect, a survivor, and an explorer, Terraria is one of the rare ones that manages to be all of that at once and still looks like a hand-drawn pixel art dream. Celeste is a game that, despite using simple pixel art, delivers a visual and emotional experience that many AAA titles fail to reach. Every detail of the environments, from the snow particles to the dynamic lighting, shows the care the developers took to create a world that is alive yet nostalgic. The art is minimalist but carries an enormous emotional weight, especially in the transitions between colorful environments and darker moments that perfectly reflect the protagonist Madeline's journey. When it comes to gameplay, Celeste is one of the most precise examples of platformer design. The controls are extremely responsive, allowing for moves like the 8-way dash and climbs that require timing and patience. The game teaches you to use every mechanic organically, and the difficulty increases intelligently, never feeling unfair. The assist mode allows the challenge to be adjusted for all levels, showing respect for the player, something rare in such demanding games. Celeste's story is one of the most personal I've ever seen in a game. Madeline, the protagonist, scales a mountain, but she is actually facing her own inner demons, such as anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. The game doesn't shy away from the difficult reality of these problems, but also shows that accepting them is the first step toward overcoming them. This journey is portrayed sensitively, without cliches, and it's easy to identify with Madeline, feel her frustration, and cheer for her triumphs. Celeste proves that indie games can surpass major productions in emotion, message, and design. It doesn't need hyper-realistic graphics or billion-dollar budgets to be memorable. With a touching soundtrack, captivating characters, and a powerful message, Celeste is a game that goes beyond the screen and stays in your memory long after it's finished. It is a game that truly humbles many AAAs, not just for its quality, but for its courage to speak about real themes with such sensitivity. Undertale is a game that proves pixel art doesn't need to be extravagant to be striking. On the contrary, its visual simplicity becomes part of its identity, creating a world that feels cozy and, at the same time, full of mysteries and surprises behind every sprite. You enter this subterranean universe as a human child and, from the start, you realize you don't need to kill anyone to progress, which already shows how the game challenges all the conventions of traditional RPGs. What impresses me most is how every character, no matter how simple they look, carries a strong and memorable personality. From goofy skeletons to shy dinosaurs, everyone has stories and nuances that hook you from beginning to end. The soundtrack is another high point, with songs that stick in your head and become part of your journey, reinforcing emotional, comedic, or even uncomfortable moments. Undertale goes beyond combat and moral choices. It plays with the fourth wall, makes you reflect on your actions, and depending on the route you choose, the game itself changes radically, showing that every decision has a real consequence, something many AAA games still can't replicate with such mastery. The fact that it was made almost entirely by a single person, Toby Fox, and gained a massive community and lasting influence shows that heart and creativity can overcome million-dollar budgets. Ultimately, Undertale is a unique experience that makes you laugh, cry, think, and above all, connect with every character as if they were old friends. It's a game that reminds me that while the industry values graphics and budgets, what really matters is the story, the emotion, and the way you feel inside that world and in that. Undertale not only humbles many AAAs, but redefines what it means to be a truly special game. Momodora. Reverie under the Moonlight is the kind of pixel art Metroidvania that proves, without making a fuss, that budget size doesn't buy good taste, pacing, and atmosphere. It's the fourth game in the series, created by the Brazilian studio Bomb Service, and was first released on PC on the 4th of March 2016, with versions later arriving on consoles like the PS4 and Xbox One. The premise starts exactly how I like it: a world in decay, cursed, and you in control of Kaho, a priestess from the village of Loon who sets out to seek an audience with the Queen of Karst, as this might be the last chance to nip the evil in the bud. What gets me here is how the game tells this with an air of mystery, events, dialogues, and descriptions, make you piece together the world's puzzle bit by bit, without treating you like you don't understand anything. In terms of gameplay, it hits the mark with that simplicity that becomes an addiction. Fluid combat with dodges, combos, and ranged attacks, the kind that makes you enter a state of real focus, especially when you decide to turn up the difficulty. I really like the feeling that the challenge is intense but fair, and that the game punishes you more for being reckless than for being cheap, and when you finally nail the timing, it feels like you've unlocked a new level of character control. Beautiful pixel art, a soundtrack and atmosphere that stick in your head, memorable bosses, and a map full of secrets, with movement so satisfying that the game even markets itself as speedrun friendly. To me, Momodora is a masterclass in direction. It knows exactly when to be restrained, when to let you explore, and when to throw you into a fight that feels like a mini climax. And it does all of this without needing millions, just intention and craftsmanship. Rogue Legacy 2 is one of those games that makes me look at many AAAs and think, man, this is all you needed to get right. It's a genealogical roguelite where death isn't the end, but continuity. You fall with one hero and immediately jump in with a different heir, carrying forward permanent upgrades and completely changing the way you play with every attempt. The result is an addictive loop, because you always feel like you're getting stronger and, at the same time, smarter, not just because of the upgrades, but because you learn to read the castle's chaos better with every run. The game has 15 classes, and they aren't just skins with different numbers, they are combat and movement styles that force you to change your mindset. There are runs where you play with surgical care, and others that turn into a carnival of aggression and improvisation, giving you that delicious just one more feeling because you want to see what absurd combination will be born in the next descendant. And when the game starts to click, you realize the design doesn't just depend on randomness. The rooms and challenges are designed to keep exploration organic, without feeling like a lazy procedural generator. Another thing I find genius, and that many super productions still do worse, is how Rogue Legacy 2 embraces the Metroidvania side within the roguelite structure. It features heirlooms, special items that grant permanent abilities and change how you traverse the world. So it's not just about hitting enemies and collecting gold. It's about opening new possibilities for movement and access, almost as if the game is expanding your gameplay vocabulary over time. This meshes perfectly with progression. You return to old areas with new tools, and suddenly that impossible place becomes a playground. The game even respects you with difficulty and accessibility options that don't treat easy, normal, or hard as a sentence, but as a fine-tuning panel. You can modulate challenge elements like enemy damage and health, and even activate rules that change the feel of the run, which is perfect for keeping the game intense without being exclusionary. To me, Rogue Legacy 2 is proof that polish, combat readability, satisfying progression, and systemic creativity are worth more than a truckload of cinematics, because here, the spectacle is you playing better with every generation. Sea of Stars is one of those pixel art RPGs that I point to and say, see why a giant budget isn't synonymous with impact? It blends nostalgia with modernity in a very conscious way. Retro visuals, but with dynamic lighting and details that make every setting look like a living diorama, the kind you stop for a few seconds just to admire. The game shines because it doesn't let turn-based combat turn into autopilot. It has timed hits like pressing and holding at the right time to attack better and defend more efficiently, so you stay truly present in every turn. Then there's the locks system, which encourages you to choose the right damage type to interrupt enemies while they prepare strong moves, making fights more strategic and dynamic than just picking the strongest spell. In exploration, I really like the fact that Sea of Stars doesn't get stuck in that clunky movement of old RPGs. You jump, climb, interact with the environment, and solve puzzles that feel designed to reward your curiosity without becoming a drag. Some puzzles get even cooler when mechanics involving the transition between day and night come into play, as this alters the aesthetic and creates very clever visual solutions. And the final touch, for me, is how the game tries to eliminate the grinding obligation. With no random encounters and no transition to a separate arena, battles happen right on the map, which keeps the pace and immersion high. It even includes extras that add flavor and a break between fights like fishing and other activities, helping the world feel more alive than just a story corridor. If I had to summarize the feeling of playing it, it's the kind of RPG that wins you over, not by promising to be a classic, but by understanding exactly what aged poorly in the classics and fixing it without losing the soul. The Messenger starts as a classic side-scroller, like Ninja Gaiden, with a messenger ninja who needs to deliver a sacred scroll to a mountain in a world cursed and dominated by a demonic army, and you can already feel the game has the heart of a classic, but the smile of something modern. The gameplay is awesome, the kind of play that sticks. The ninja is agile, scales walls fast, has a hook, a glider, and above all, the famous cloud step, where you get an extra jump in the air by hitting something with your sword, allowing you to fly over spikes, enemies, and platform after platform. The game takes the 8-bit platforming style, but adds precise controls, a tight camera, and skill progression that makes you evolve from a scared ninja to a walking mono ninja who passes over everything, turning into an almost continuous loop of action and acrobatics. Then comes the part that makes me go, man, that's genius. After a while, the game takes a twist and changes from a linear side-scroller to a Metroidvania, where you can return to old stages and explore areas that didn't exist or were inaccessible. The trick is that by traveling between the past 8-bit and a future 500 years later, 16-bit, the environments change, platforms appear or disappear, and only by toggling between the two times can you unlock paths, secrets, and hidden items. It's one of the most creative level transitions I've ever seen in a platformer. What makes it truly humble many super productions is that all of this is wrapped in a package with a sharp identity, impeccable pixel art, a hyper-memorable soundtrack with rainbow dragon eyes providing that true 8-bit and 16-bit vibe, and humor very much in the style of, well, I'm just here carrying the scroll. The game respects the player's time, doesn't overdo the cutscenes, and even invents a financial punishment system for death that is much more fun than just losing everything. The Messenger is a classic case of less is more. It doesn't try to be an 80-hour monster. It's focused, fun, appropriately difficult, and smart. And it makes you rethink the idea that only a giant budget can deliver a great gaming experience. Hyper Light Drifter is the kind of pixel art game that puts many big games in its pocket because it understands that atmosphere and visual identity aren't bought, they are built. You control a solitary, sick drifter exploring a post-apocalyptic world full of ruins from an advanced civilization, and the game explains nothing to you through text. It's all visual, sound, and feeling. For me, that's the masterstroke. It throws you in and trusts that you will figure it out on your own, just like the best 16-bit Zelda games did, but with an extra layer of melancholy and mystery that sticks in your memory. The gameplay is where it really stands out because it's simple in command but absurdly difficult to master. You have a sword, a pistol, and a dash used for dodging and movement, and with just that, the game creates frenetic, brutal, and strategic combat. Enemies don't give you a break. They come in hordes, each with its own attack pattern, and any slip-up kills you. It's the kind of combat that requires reading, timing, and rhythm, almost like dancing in a deadly choreography. And the bosses are legendary, the kind where you die several times, but when you finally win, you feel like you've truly evolved as a player. Exploration is another high point because the world is completely open from the start, full of secrets hidden in corners that seem inaccessible until you notice the subtle visual hint showing you the way. The game trains you to look better, to experiment, and that's genius. It doesn't put a giant HUD pointing "go here." It challenges you to be curious and observant, rewarding those who pay attention to details. The camera sometimes shows you places you can't reach yet, and that stays in your head. It's an intelligent design that pulls you back to explore more. The game runs at 60 frames per second, is fluid and responsive, and every detail of the environments was built with obsessive care. You can feel the love in every frame. To me, it's proof that you don't need motion capture cinematics and a Hollywood budget to create a memorable and impactful experience. All it takes is vision, skill, and respect for the player. Animal Well is the kind of game that reminds you why we fell in love with video games in the first place. Created by just one person, Billy Basso, over 7 years of development, this pixel art Metroidvania manages to do what many million-dollar productions fail miserably at: creating a world that leaves you genuinely curious, restless, and almost obsessed with discovering what's hidden in every dark corner. You control a little yellow ball that emerges from a flower at the beginning of the game, without context, without explanation, and without that flood of boring tutorials that AAA games love to shove down your throat. What makes Animal Well absolutely unique is how it respects your intelligence. The items you find are toys, a slinky, a frisbee, a bubble wand, and each has multiple uses that the game never explains directly. You need to experiment, test, and think outside the box, creating moments of discovery so satisfying that you feel like a genius when you finally realize that seemingly useless item was the key to solving 3 different puzzles. Visually, Animal Well humbles many AAA games because Billy Basso built a custom engine specifically for pixel art on modern hardware, and the result is stunningly beautiful. The water reflects the cave ceilings in a mesmerizing way, the character animation is fluid and expressive in a way you rarely see in pixel art, and every pixel was placed purposefully as if it were a puzzle in itself. The sound design is another triumph. The cries of the creatures, the echoes, the sound of rain and running water create an immersion that many games with astronomical budgets can't achieve. And if you think you've finished the game when the credits roll for the first time, get ready to discover that you've barely scratched the surface. Animal Well has 4 layers of secrets and puzzles. The third involves ARG elements where you need to collaborate with 50 other players to solve certain enigmas. And the fourth requires speedruns and completely undocumented actions. After nearly 40 hours, players are still discovering new things because literally nothing in this game is wasted. Every suspicious wall hides a treasure, and every strange creature has a purpose. It's the kind of game that makes you wonder why on earth we need $200 million and 1,000 developers when one dedicated person can create a masterpiece like this.